On today's episode, we're speaking to people who are looking desperately for an outlet and a way to really, truly redefine who they are and what they do. I'm telling you, this episode is going to challenge you because it's going to re-inspire and reignite the element of play, the significance of finding creative outlets within your work and even outside your work. Not playing the page or the script that you've been given, but coloring outside the lines and actually being and existing in such a way that you're free. And trust me, I know if you feel this and you need this, watch this episode all the way through to the end. Welcome back to Aspire Higher with Charles and Yvana Bailey. We're going to be talking about play, the importance of play in your life, because a lot of us, we get so caught up in adulting that we've lost sight that we're just adult children. And that's not necessarily an insult, but that could be an inspiration. Yvana, what's going on today? How are you feeling?
What's going on? I'm good.
You look bright. I'm feeling great. Anytime I sit next to you.
Oh, boy.
But jumping right into our topic, you know, the reality of it is a lot of our viewers and listeners are leaders in sport. They're business owners. They're people who are aspiring to be and do more in their life and their career. What are some things that recently you may have encountered where you're like, yo, adulting is hard?
Bills.
Yeah, bills.
Bills, pressure.
Yeah.
The moment you think you should be living outside of the steps that God has already paid for you. The minute you start scrolling and you're like, I can have that too. I can have it that fast. And that is probably very difficult because as a child, you just had your environment and your surroundings to thrive in. But having social media and different mediums that teach you other people's visions, it makes things complicated.
And I think that's incredible because one of the things that I can say as an adult as well is I struggle with that often, but it's not a struggle in the sense that I'm struggling with it. I'm challenged by it, which means that I'm constructively and intentionally fighting against that. Right? Does that make sense?
Of course.
I think that's what I'm trying to say. And maybe you feel the same way. I mean, when are some times in your life that you felt that adulting was hard? Right? Think about what you do for a living. Think about the things like Yvana just said that you've been seeing on social media that makes you think that you can be doing more and should be doing more. And for instance, we're talking about that. Yeah. That's in essence what we talk about.
That's right.
You can actually do more, but sometimes the vision though is one that's influenced by someone else's vision.
Of course. And I think that's when you get in trouble because you're striving to kind of place your feet in the same steps someone already stepped in.
That's right.
And you're like, I can do it just as fast, I can do it just as good, and I can be either rich doing it, wealthy, whatever your goal is. And the problem with it is that you can lead yourself to burnout.
Sure, we talk about that, that's right.
Your stamina can decrease because you weren't meant to actually go into their shoes, into their lane.
Yeah.
So staying in your lane is harder than it sounds, to be honest.
But I think the essence of what you said too, going back to your original point with kids, being children and playing, right?
Yes.
I think that's what we want to stress to you at the very front of this show. And hopefully by the time that we get to the end of it, they're going to be inspired to think maybe you've lost sight of your own vision because you're living in the expectations that others have set for you. I think about when I was a kid, and I know sometimes you probably still think I act like a kid, but no, seriously, I remember getting a coloring book or a page to color, right? And I always tell people this, even when I'm on the stage, I remind them of the importance of play because when you got these lines, they gave you a box of crayons, right? You have, I remember those big boxes of Crayola, like 500 crayons, but you know what color certain things are supposed to be.
Okay.
By expectation, right? If there's a picture of a pig, you have an idea what color to color it. But when you're a kid, sometimes you're like, I know what color it's supposed to be, but I'm going to paint this pig blue.
Okay. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
it's your interpretation.
It's your interpretation.
Right.
And that's what I'm trying to say. And then sometimes they give you the clear lines, but then you're like, I don't want to color inside the lines.
Right.
I want to color outside the lines, and I want to do all this.
I remember when I was younger, sometimes it would stress me out seeing the black and white because it was, in a sense, ingraining in me that I have to stick within that guideline. I didn't want to do that. And many times I would create, like, let's say it's a circle and it's supposed to be, I'm coloring a hippo.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to color the trees and the clouds around the hippo and paint a bigger picture than just the hippo on the page. So I remember always feeling a little stressed when I saw the black and white outline because I'm like, I have so much creativity. I see a bigger picture than what's just given to me.
Oh, that's amazing. And that's what I'm trying to say. Like, many of us get so caught up in our adult lives, in our circumstance, in our responsibilities, that we are losing sight of the creative element. And so it becomes a burden. And like when I asked you, what are the first things? You said bills, bills, bills. Well, some people are living their lives just to pay bills. And they're not living in the creativity of how they can pay those bills. The fun is not in the paying the bill, which I will challenge because we have a mentor who definitely challenged us. Shout out to Melvin. Melvin Pillay. He says to us every time, he said, I don't care what bill it is. He says, when I get a bill, I get happy.
Rejoicing.
He says, I get grateful. He says, because I am in a position where I can pay this and I know that I'm putting food on someone else's table.
Come on.
But that's what I mean.
That's deep.
That's the essence of play.
That's right.
Adulting is already hard.
Right.
You have enough challenges, enough responsibilities. But if you keep thinking inside the black and white, almost literally, right? The black and white on the ink or the page of a bill, you're going to be trapped into the societal parameters that will become your boundaries or your prison because you lose your imagination and ability to create.
Come on. Imagination, thank you for saying that, is so important. And implementation with your imagination is even more, it's just beautiful. The first part of this year, I remember saying, I am not going to make this year my one word. You know how you have like the year
I
of,
said the same
this
thing.
is my year of, and we mentioned this in another podcast. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I just think that in the step that I have in life and generating with force, that's just not something I want to focus on. And so I prayed and I said, God, let this be your year in season to show me what is it that I need to complete? What is it that I need to fulfill? I don't want to limit it with just a word, but I want you to breathe life into those moments for me. Because, and I said to you, I was like, if I was in the wilderness, if I was in the forest, I would have no concept of time. I would have, let's say I had like no electronics. I would have no concept of time. I wouldn't know what day it was. I wouldn't have a calendar. So if I am just present, and if I am taking all of my resources and making sure I have shelter and I'm provided for and I'm having fun, I'm by the water and just living, well, I have no pressure or stress. The minute you assign, this is my year of, it could create stress and pressure because now you have to live up to that and then you might feel depressed if you don't. And also there are the trends of like, what is it called? My New Year's resolution. Okay, you have a New Year's resolution, but you didn't finish last year's work, right?
Understood.
So let's be real about that. So I decided in what God was birthing in me, there's a time where you have to respect it may not generate so much money because I'm creating. A lot of the creators that are out here, you know what I'm saying. There's a moment where you feel tasked with the privilege to birth what's on the inside of you. When you birth that thing, there are pains, there are worries and stresses. There's a lot of weight that comes to that, a lot of gravitas, because it's bigger than you. So in January, I was like, okay, I feel something in here. I feel like I need to birth something to where women can not only identify with how to transcend their image, but they actually have guidelines and principles on how to arrive authentically in the room, how to be prepared for a photo shoot, how to understand how to translate what they want to look like through the lens. Like that is very difficult. And to not criticize when you get your prints back or when you get your images back and be like, I hated that. I should have done this. How to visualize and how to do guided visualization before you even get to that step so that you're just seamless. So I was like, this is something that we have creatively been practicing for years. In entertainment, it forces you to always be ready.
Absolutely.
Always be ready. And if you're not ready, you're not booked. Okay,
Yeah, that's
let's
the
just be real
truth.
about
Yeah,
it.
let's just be real.
So in doing that work, I've learned that there is a beauty in the exploration of creativity. And I had to take my step back from adulting. Okay, I need to make sure I generate this the first quarter and have this ready, and
Right.
business has to, I was like, let's create.
Let's create.
Let's go back to creating.
Come on.
Let's go back to creating and building a format and having these things in place so that others can enjoy the fruit of my creativity.
Yes, of course. Oh man, coach. I mean, my gosh. But I hope that you're taking some inspiration from that, because maybe that's where you are.
Yeah.
You have enough on your plate already, but maybe you've lost sight of the ability you have to create the life that you want to live. Notice that has nothing to do with the things that you're responsible for. And I'm stuttering, but you know my point.
Right.
Create the life that you want so that it can be an expression of the fullness of who you are. And truly, those other things, find a way to integrate them. But you said something else that was incredible, man. And you were talking it without even knowing you were talking about it, but also expectation.
Yeah.
You have to set a higher expectation.
Okay.
A lot of people don't challenge themselves to create because their expectations are too low. For instance, they go into situations with already telling themselves that it's not going to work out favorably for them. And that's what happens. It starts to block our imagination and our creativity. We can't have vision. We can't see our goals as an expression. It becomes, like you just said, an obsession.
Yeah.
And that's a buzzword that everyone's been talking about recently. But becoming obsessed can also kill you. And some people who are obsessed, they have what? Like warrants. Like,
yes.
You know what I'm trying to say?
Lifetime movies.
And I get it. I understand what they're saying. You want to become so enthralled that that's the only thing. But that's also the problem. There's a difference between commitment and obsession.
Yeah.
I can be committed to my goals, but if I'm obsessed to the point where I can't touch or feel or be connected to or experienced, I'm missing out on the essence of what I was meant to give and bring to other people, places, and things.
100% correct.
Yeah.
And there's a balance in commitment.
Yeah.
Because you can start to lose yourself and it develop into obsession. And there are listeners right now that might feel that you've been compelled to work from commitment and venture into an obsession. Like, I've got to do this, it's got to work out. And there's nothing wrong with feeling like that. But when you start losing sight of how you can be creative in your own space, how you can be present within that space, you might want to take a step back and reevaluate how you're overcommitting and how you're underserving. Because maybe your family needs you more.
Yeah.
Maybe you need to be more present at work in a different way. Maybe you need to serve a little bit better at work. Maybe you need to pay more compliments. Maybe you just look outside of yourself. And I know, and I'm speaking from experience, when I was creating and the beauty of what I was creating was so heavy and intensive because I take women through experiences. It's not just a course.
Right.
You are going to experience a transformative journey, and it's going to challenge you. It's going to encourage and uplift you. So the weight of all of that is within me, and it reaches internationally, nationally. But I said, you know, I can be very critical with art. So I remember feeling like every line had to be right. Every word had to be right. And then I stopped and I'm like, I think I just spent 12 hours today working on this.
Yeah.
12 hours, right? So I'm sowing seeds in. But the problem is there's a beautiful garden around me to where I have a healthy outlet. Yeah. I can go outside for a walk and embrace just nature. I can go and window shop or shop. I can cook. I can do so many different things that might seem like they're just activities, but it's also a good way to say I have my commitment, but I also have balance.
Your
I'm also present.
Outlet.
My creative outlet. That's it.
That's right.
My creative outlet. So you have the gift of creativity. You have the steps of how to lead your creativity into product form. And then you have your creative outlet. And I think creative outlets is where people stop.
Of course.
Because it's not really, it's like, you just get like, it's like a tornado. You just get swept up. And by the time you're in it, you're over there and you're even worse, you know?
And you tell yourself you don't have time, but you're missing the point. The thing that you've been given at any point, once it's given to you, is yours, meaning you can then be as creative as you want to be with it.
Correct.
The point about coloring outside the lines is that you've been given a set of expectations.
Correct.
But you are the one in the creative seat.
Yeah.
It's almost like if I give you a project to do and I say, hey, this is what we need, and you're a creative, do I say to you, it needs to be X, Y, X, Y, X, Y?
No, because I'm the one that's creating
You
it.
come with the creative expression.
Right.
Now, if I say make some changes and edits, I'm just enhancing what you've already given me, but it all started with you.
I recently had the privilege to partner with a corporation of women, and I'll be leading the experience internationally and nationally.
Yeah.
And I remember when you're doing content review, they want to make sure that everything's in alignment, that you're speaking within the right guidelines, all that, right? But essentially, the creator, the person in the seat to create, distributes what they've done, and you're impacting, influencing, and implementing what you've already done. So with that being said, there's a moment where in content review, there can be criticism, there can be constructive criticism, but still, there's a moment where, if I'm speaking to perfectionists, by the way.
Okay, now.
When you create something, you got to know that you're doing it through your lens.
Ooh, talk about it, coach.
Other people see things and they might say, well, why don't we try it like this? The moment you get defensive,
coach,
you lose.
Girl, I'm about to leave this room.
You
lose. Better talk about it, creative
coach. You lose. Because there is a beauty in the collaboration.
Yes, ma'am.
Especially when it comes from a supportive voice. I'm not talking about an abusive voice.
Absolutely.
I'm talking about support. Hey, you created this. It's beautiful. Why don't we look at another way where we can communicate this effectively to the women?
Yes.
That's a good point. You know what? Let me make that note. There's so many people that will not make that note because they're too prideful.
Coach.
Let's be real about it. They're too prideful and won't take a step back to say, you know what? They're just trying to enhance what I've already created. Enhance what I've already created.
You know what that is? That's co-creating.
Okay.
Coach,
so we have creative outlet, co-creating. Go ahead.
Many of you don't know that Yvana and I are both SAG-eligible actors. We are working actors. We do this. This is an outlet and expression of the fullness of our ability to communicating messages, right?
Yep.
And one of the things that is the most important lesson we've ever learned as professional actors is if you want to be a great actor, make the attention and the focus on your partner.
Yeah.
If you are such a good actor that you can make the person that you're sharing the space with comfortable, seen, and give them a place to express themselves and you're listening, then you can then create magic on the screen that other people can experience because you're both having an experience.
That's right.
We have an acting coach we've worked with. Shout out to Russ, my man, Russ Blackwell. He has hundreds of credits to his name, but he's one of the most authentic and genuine people you'll ever meet. And he gave us a lesson once where he says, when you get sides or what you may know as a script, the most important thing you can do as an actor is look at it, but don't play the page. Most people will get a script and it's black and white, just like you talked about at the beginning. And they'll read it for what it says and then imagine, okay, I need to do that. As opposed to living in that page, living in it somewhere in real life, bringing in people and experiencing people. And then, as he says, be willing to feel openly, publicly. Where you're connected not with the words, but you're connected with the person, the being.
That's right.
He said, most people play the page, but don't do the work.
Absolutely. I trust that. That's so good. And even tying that into athletics, there's a conversation we had. Shout out to Sha'Carri Richardson.
Hey, what's up, girl?
Hello. And you talk about when Dennis, her coach, the acceleration pattern. Talk about that really quick.
Yeah. I was just saying really quickly, and you may have seen it. You may have seen the last episode we spoke about this, but it's a lesson that we learned from Coach Dennis and Sha'Carri, and it was a simple statement. He said to her in an acceleration when she was doing her warm-up, he said, be patient with your acceleration.
That speaks so much because there are creators and creatives that don't develop patience. Mind you, I didn't say don't have patience. I said don't develop it. When you think about photographers and you think about old photography, the way to develop the film, right? The way to develop the picture or the image, it had to be submerged in the dark, in the water. It had to be hung up. There's so many different steps to develop the bigger picture.
Yeah.
Now, you rush one step, you prematurely turn the lights on, you prematurely lift it out of the water, you can ruin the whole image.
Absolutely.
So even with athletics, you trust your coach. The coach has the blueprint or script.
Yeah.
You work that script, you understand that script, you even talk about it, collaborate, because if it's just you as an athlete and you have so much to say and you're the great debater, well, then you don't need a coach. You got it. You win. You win.
Yeah.
But understanding what co-collaboration means as a co-creative team, it gives you so much leverage to understand that the pressure is not all on you.
That's right.
Take it off.
Yeah.
Take off all that pressure. And some people right now are buried under pressure, buried feeling like they're by themselves. And in that, I would say, go find support, go get community, go get a coach, go get someone that believes in you and bigger than what your vision is currently. And also too, if you find yourself constantly debating or constantly feeling like I can't accept constructive criticism or an outside lens that is trying to really just support me,
trying to play with you,
I'll say, start doing the inner work to define, where does this come from? Was this passed down? I don't really want to be defensive every time somebody says something about my work that I've created or something that I've submitted, my projects that I've done, but I find myself learning that that's my habit. So if that's your habit, check your habits. Check your habit and then start to develop a new process. Because honestly, when you look at the bigger picture, when you look at the vision of what you've created, it can only be magnified and enhanced and then supported. So really do the work. And if you know that's you, just be like, yo, that's me. She's talking to me.
Absolutely.
She's talking to me. And I'm going to try my best to take supportive criticism. Maybe we'll stop even saying constructive.
That's right.
Because some people don't want to be reconstructed.
Yeah, right.
I'm taking supportive criticism.
That's such a great reframing.
That's it. That's coach, right?
A great reframing.
Supportive criticism. And I'm going to hear what they're saying. I'm going to listen and apply what they're saying. I'm going to step out of my own work. Because sometimes you have to take a step away from what you've created.
That's right.
Right? And then just say, you know what? When I'm ready, I'm going to come back to it. I'm going to apply what they've said. And I'm going to see if it made it better. And if it didn't, I still listened and I still honored what they said.
That's so great, because going back to another lesson we've learned in acting school, I remember there was one time I was doing this scene, and some of you are going to laugh because it's true. I was doing a scene with a partner and I was rehearsing. And again, a lot of times when you're getting sides or a script, you have time with the script on your own.
Right.
You've done this work. You've kind of created this character. We call them choices.
Right.
I've made these choices. But then when you bring somebody else in, it is not going to work.
No, not the way you thought.
Because you can't at all prepare for how they've made their decisions and choices, which is why it's important to play, right? And it's important to let go.
Right.
I think that's what most people forget. The work that he is showing us is most important is do the work for yourself.
Yes.
But then let it all go.
Yeah, that's hard.
And that's what is hard, because he said to me one time, I was in the scene and I was giving, and I mean, I was killing it. I'm to my own horn. I was laying this script down.
Right.
And he said, look at what she's doing. And I'm looking at her and I'm giving her something. He's like, listen to her. And I'm like, I'm listening. And I'm like, I'm killing it. He goes, no, you're not responding to what she's giving you.
To play on that moment.
I was responding to what she was saying, but I wasn't responding to what she was feeling and being. There was a point where I said something in the script and her emotions shifted because of how I communicated it.
Right.
And it was my job as an actor to feel that,
Correct.
because it shifts the conversation.
Correct.
Even though I was delivering the lines, I wasn't playing alongside her.
And you missed the moment.
And he said, you've got to get to a point where you're not married to the way you want to do it or the way you want to say it.
It's hard.
But that's where many of us are.
Yeah.
That's where many of you are as leaders. That's where many of you are as athletes.
Yeah.
That's where many of you are as parents. That's where many of you are in your existence. you're so married to the way you want it to be and the expectations you set that you can't let go when someone else comes into your world or your circle and is meant to enhance and engage you in a way that helps you grow.
Come on.
So you feel offended and attacked, and now you miss the thing that you were hoping and praying would come into your life in the first place. A seen partner, someone who cares enough and loves you enough and wants to be with you enough to play.
Yeah. That's real. That's real. That's so real and so good. And I thought immediately about one of my dear friends, Carolina, and I thought about when you're running a business, right? So we talked the athletic, we talked about the people in the arts, the creators, right? And then now talking about business.
Yeah.
When you're running a business like she is, like this.
Yeah, no doubt.
There is a co-creator. We have Carlos.
Yes.
There is a scene partner. So they have built really from scratch everything that you're seeing, right?
Sure.
And the beauty behind when two people are agreed and they walk together is that we're still having dialogue if we're walking together, right? But if you want to go further, you just listen to what the other person has to say, and maybe we could do it like this, maybe we can expand here, maybe we can, whatever it is. But I think about the layers of business. I think about if you sell yourself short with just hearing and believing your own voice is the way, you've missed it. Because you need the COO, you need the employees, there's so many intricacies in business that you could take it here, but if you want to take it here, you need the village, you need the supporters, you need the co-creators, right? So when you're birthing a business or when you're running a business, there are times to where you might want to do it your way. And your way is the highway. But I feel if you want to take it across the nation, across the globe, if you want to circumnavigate with your ideas, bring other people in and don't be afraid. Don't be ashamed
to play.
Don't be ashamed to play off of someone else's ideas. Don't be so arrogant to think your way is it. Because someone else can say, no, there's a better way, and we can get it done together faster within 1 quarter as opposed to the whole year. So I think the seed of humility is wrapped in playing. I also think that if you miss the moment to grow together with others, that you'll limit yourself to just the parameters of what you've created when it can be way bigger, and you can create your own prison for sure.
I think just to wrap up the show, Coach, you are giving so much wisdom, and I myself am really growing and learning and gleaning from what you're saying. I wanted to mention one last thing, again, since I'm on this theme for whatever reason, the arts and acting. I think for you listening or watching, it may come down to also, what do you want? What do you really want? Because it will dictate whether you're willing to explore, play, be open, receptive to other people's thoughts, perspectives, and opinions. I'm not talking about people who are dissuading you or taking you from what God has purposed in your heart or things you're meant to do, or you have a mission and you're locked in on it and they can either join or not join. But if they want to join, are you allowing them to, right? Deciding what you want. Don Cheadle, one of the best actors, hands down, in my opinion, of course, in the history of acting because of how he plays his roles. He's a support actor. He does lead, but he's great supporting cast. But he said, people come up to me often and they say, I'm gonna be like you, I wanna be a professional actor and I wanna be famous. He says, well, okay, you wanna be famous? Or you wanna be an actor?
Correct. Two totally different
things. Because they're two different things. You have to decide what you want. If you want to be famous, well, then you don't really want to be an actor, so you just want to find an open door, you just want to find a hookup, or you'll be willing to do whatever it takes to get here, and you're not really a crafts person. You're not really expressing the fullness of your creative gift, right? But if you want to be an actor, you have to do the work because your work is the play.
For sure.
Whether you get booked for anything or not. And this is what most people don't understand about arts, creatives, actors, or people in that way, is because they're giving of themselves whether you pay them for it or not
Man.
because they have to do it.
Absolutely.
Now, what happens is the more they do it, they get so good that you
Yep.
can't deny them.
Yeah,
And then you say, I want you to be a part of this. And they say, it's going to cost you $10 million.
That's right. That's
because
right.
I've spent 20 years
That's
of
right.
playing to the
Yep.
point where I get so lost
Yeah.
in my creativity.
Yes.
It's not about the money,
Right.
but look at my work and the value I'm bringing.
Come on.
So I'm telling you, same thing for everything we've talked about in terms of the importance of collaboration and play and opening yourself up and releasing and letting go of things.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to know what you really want.
Yeah.
Because if you don't really want to live in higher aspirations,
Mm-hmm.
you really don't want freedom,
Mm-hmm.
you really don't want to feel the light and the ease in walking out who you're made to be, and you want to just be rich and
No.
you just want
Forget
the
it.
money and you just want the mansion, it's okay.
Yeah.
Just say that's what I want and that's what I'm after and I don't care, because then you don't have to hold yourself or give yourself any pressure of what you're not.
But I'll tell you what, it's going to cost you.
But if you
Yes.
really want that other side of life,
Yeah.
no matter where you are right now in it, decide that you'll look at it through the lens of the creative element of play.
Yeah.
Take the responsibilities you have today. I remember I gave a keynote, and I'll close with this. I gave a keynote to an educational seminar, and I was speaking to teachers and administrators and parents and about their students.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I told them is you can't take out your stresses and your expectations and undefined expectations
Mm-hmm.
on your kids.
Mm-hmm.
Because when a kid comes to you, all they want to know is, do you want to play?
Yeah.
Even if you're going to educate them,
Yeah.
you can educate someone very well through how
Right.
well you play with them.
Right.
And many times I learn more from a person and how they play
Yeah.
and how they use their instrument and how open they are to play than I will from anything they say.
Right.
Because the behaviors speak louder than their words.
Yeah.
So I'm saying that to say, decide what you want.
Right.
And once you decide it, if you want the life that's set on higher aspirations, raise your level of play and your awareness to play. And I guarantee you, the sounds and the music you make will be pleasing,
Yeah.
not just to your ears, those around you, and those you serve.
Indeed. And don't forget to share, like, comment, be our support system. How about that? Help us co-create a bigger vision for this podcast. We thank you already for your subscriptions. We thank you because that means you're watching, you're listening, you're engaging. But don't forget to share it. Let people hear this.
Yeah.
Let people in on what you have received. And we'll see you next time.